Breakthrough. You are now listening to Breakthrough News. It's 5 p.m. You're listening to Breakthrough News, and this is The Punch-Out. And we are back with our ongoing, continuing coverage here from Haiti, special editions of The Punch-Out, while myself, Eugene Puryear, your host, is here on the ground with our Breakthrough News team in Haiti, bringing you as much information as we possibly can from both the popular struggle, which is shaking this nation and has really electrified the world, and also just the daily life and reality of the Haitian people, which is so misunderstood in the mainstream Western media. Among other things we've had the opportunity to do, we were able to attend a community meeting. It was put on by organizations and individuals who have been involved in the popular struggle here. It was really, and it ended up being an exchange because they also wanted to know a lot about what was happening in the United States, and we made a lot of parallels, had a lot of great discussion about that. But I want to start by noting what they responded, what their response was when I asked, for our U.S. audience, what is it that you would most like us to underline, to highlight, to emphasize? Unanimously in this community meeting, and I will say unanimously from most of the folks we have talked to the whole time we've been here from popular organizations on the streets, is for people in the United States to work actively to stop the U.S. backing of the so-called president, really dictator, Jovenel Moïse. It was certainly today, and it has been ubiquitous in all of our conversations with people, just overhanging everything, how important the role of the United States is for the backing of Jovenel. Everyone is stressing to us that the only thing that really is propping him up in a big way now, because so many of the sectors of society have rejected him, is really this support from the United States. And another factor that we heard from several people is the role of the U.S. Embassy in particular. And a number of individuals shared with us that they're very angry that the U.S. Embassy picks and chooses what it emphasizes, and that there are massacres perpetrated by Jovenel's government, that there are many harmful policies perpetrated by Jovenel's government. It was mentioned in the community meeting, for instance, the HOPE law that I'd mentioned previously on on our special editions, that is basically the law that governs tariff-free access of goods that are made, textiles mainly, in sweatshops here in Haiti. It's a very bad situation for the workers there. And that was also emphasized as an element that the U.S. is pushing. But really, several people told us in particular that they feel the U.S. Embassy heavily downplays, doesn't mention at all many of the terrible things done by Jovenel's government, but that they do mention other things that may happen that they feel are designed to make Jovenel's government look good, that the U.S. Embassy will emphasize certain elements of instability when it's something that Jovenel can claim, I'm working to fight that, I'm working to clean that up, I'm working to change that. But if it's the other way around and it implicates his government, that there's dead silence. And so that, I think, is a very important thing for Americans to understand, is and anyone really, the active role of the U.S. Embassy in politics here, the active role it plays in terms of intervening in people's struggles, and how angry many people are with that. We met with women's organizations as well, and one of the organizers we met with said that she believed that Jovenel was the biggest liar on earth, and that everything he said was designed to just mislead people about what's really going on in the country. And that was in response to me asking what she felt about many of the things we see in the United States. You know, as we've mentioned before, like Kanye West buying the island and Sean Penn going down there and these other celebrities talking like Jovenel is so good and progressive and so on and so forth, that she said Jovenel is the biggest liar. And that was something that she really wanted people to know, that when they are confused, perhaps seeing the protest, but then also seeing the U.S. government and the media give a line that perhaps this is a democracy and that Jovenel is good, that they should not believe that. So really universal message from all the popular movements, from the people who are spending time in the streets, who have been part of this massive uprising of all sectors of Haitian society, is that they are very keen for people in the United States to understand that Jovenel's dictatorship is backed by the United States, propped up by the United States, and they want to see more from people in the United States to push back against this. And in the same vein of that piece, there was also a lot of stress that people want the Haitian reality to be known. And no one here is denying that Haiti has many problems of poverty, that it has violence and instability. But the connections that popular organizations and even just people on the street have been making for us is that these are not accidents. These are enforced policies by a government that's backed by the United States. And they want people to know that unlike just what they see on mainstream media, killings, kidnappings, poverty, that there is a very vibrant social sector here of all sorts of organizations. And we've met with trade unions, women's organizations, youth organizations, alternative media groups, other forms of mass organizations that are continuing to struggle in many ways, religious organizations. I mean, all sectors of society. They want people to know that they are here, they're organizing, they're coming together, they're taking their destiny into their own hands, and that there are proud people here in Haiti with a strong legacy, and this idea that it's just some darkest of dark night with, total chaos and no rhyme or reason to it is not, in fact, what's really happening on the ground. And I think that's really powerful for people to understand, is that so many people here in Haiti, they have no problem with the American people. They're very upset with the American government, but all they really want is for people in America to know it's not just the bad stuff you see, but that there's a really strong social movement sector, organizing sector, civil society sector that is pushing back and, trying to fight for a very different type of society. We've had several people tell us who are involved in the organizations that what Haiti really needs is a total transformation. Everyone is saying that the first thing they want to see is for Jovenel to fall. That's 100%. Everyone knows and wants this dictator out. They want him out, and they know that's the number one task. But many, many people have told us that it's beyond that there has to be a total transformation here in Haiti, that there need to be governments that start to push for social rights. It was noted to us by one individual today that the Constitution that Jovenel has totally abrogated. And for those maybe who are just catching up, he's abrogated the Constitution. He's overstayed his term. He's dissolved the Supreme Court, dissolved the legislature, has been ruling by decree for over a year. So it was emphasized to us that this Constitution stresses things like the right for workers to organize, something that's totally not recognized. And in fact, we were told by trade unionists that if we weren't there in the meeting we had with them, that if they'd had a meeting where we were meeting, they probably would have been arrested. That the Constitution also guarantees a right to housing. That is totally unrecognized. It's totally unrecognized here. And as I shared on my Twitter, and of course you can follow us at BT Newsroom, where we're retweeting things and sharing things from my personal Twitter, and also sharing things. When we went to La Saline, which is one of the main popular districts, we saw the elements, I don't want to call them remnants because they're still there, but just the early elements of a house building program in this working class neighborhood by President Aristide to help improve people's housing years ago. And of course, that program was abandoned after he was couped out. And so you can see that the real impact here of this constitutional provision is nothing. And it's because the government refuses to acknowledge the reality on the ground. I don't want to say refuses to want to address the reality on the ground that there is a lack of dignified housing for people, despite the fact it's a constitutional right. So the same person who noted this to us said that they thought it was not a it was not a surprise that the U.S. was backing Jovenel so heavily in his attempt to do a constitutional referendum and elections, because they've wanted to they've been hostile to the Constitution for many years. And this person's a longtime popular struggler. And they said the U.S. forces have always been angry at this 1987 Constitution for having too many social rights ingrained in it. And they would almost certainly love to see a new Constitution that almost certainly would have just absolutely none of that within it. And when we put all that together, I think it's just 100% clear the message we got from people on the ground, again, from community organizations, individuals of all types who are involved in the protests who we were able to talk with, is they want Jovenel out. They want the U.S. to stop backing him, and they're hoping that people in the United States continue to push that, and that they're also looking towards what the future can and should be for the people of Haiti. And it was stressed to me that the opposition is not united, that there are many people who want Jovenel out, but don't want a social transformation. They're just other sectors of the elite. So it was also stressed that there's sort of two struggles. There's the anti-dictatorship struggle, but there's also the struggle of organizations to build institutions that fight for a more durable transformation and fight for a break away from the neoliberal capitalism that has a total stranglehold here on the country of Haiti. So very rich to have the opportunity to speak with all of these organizations. And, another thing I would like to share when we met with women's organizations is they also stressed to us the extremely patriarchal nature of the reality here, the fact that unemployment is disproportionately affecting women, which is creating many, many problems where women are forced to depend on men, which increases incidence of domestic violence. They also shared with us some great projects that they work on, economic projects to help people escape abusive situations, establish an independent living, and push back against that. But they also stressed that rape and sexual assault are used oftentimes by security forces as weapons of war. And I think that's important for people to know in terms of the brutality that's being meted out by the forces surrounding the so-called President Jovenel Moïse. So very rich day, very rich tapestry of popular organizations here in Haiti. We've had the opportunity to talk to half a dozen, 10 maybe in just a few days. And we will be meeting with many more. And that is something that, again, I want to stress that people were really stressing that they want people to understand that there's a really vibrant popular sector here that's not just fighting on the streets, but that's working ideologically, that's developing media projects, that's developing educational projects, that's working economically to help improve people's lives, and fighting really to establish a society where these social rights are respected. So that's going to do it for us here today on our special edition of The Punch Out, our dispatches here from Haiti. We're on the ground bringing you the news from the popular struggle and the everyday reality of the Haitian people.